Yes.
Yes, now it's the full screen. Yes, yeah, correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay. So as usual, if we were to start with what is happening now, we've added a country, the China picture. If you notice in the previous waves, where in the Delta wave, India was the highest. Then in the Omicron wave, Israel shot up despite being highly vaccinated. And the last that you see here in December, US is still pretty high. Israel is still pretty high. India is kind of staying, sort of low. And China is beginning to emerge from extended slumber. अगर आप China को देखो तो China is that line where it has been hugging the baseline always, but towards here it is kind of showing an uptrend. If we look at the R0, and that is where now this is as of December 18th, 2022. India का R0 थोड़ा सा उठ रहा है. We have to watch over the next week or 10 days to see whether that results in more infections in India. That R0 is the index case giving infection to how many more cases. In India, the R0 has stayed consistently less than 2, 3, 1.4 होता है, 1.5 होता है. And our weekly positivity rates are 0.14, 0.15, which is very encouraging, which means that we are not headed towards a surge. But with this rising R0, we have to be watchful. If you notice, Israel ka R0 is dropping, and it is dropping less than 1. US is still around 1.2. UK has flattened out around 1.3. China, however, if this curve is to be believed, has an R यहाँ पर less than 0.5, whereas in the media the reports are saying, and that is one reason why we cannot make any judgments about what is happening in China, because data is not reliable. Data is something that we have to bank on. So given this, probably the media hype is not very true or very consistent with the picture on the ground. But I am in touch with people in China. I have a few friends there, and they're saying that the situation in pockets is very critical. So जो आप देख रहे हो, शायद उन pockets के लिए, शायद उन anecdotal occurrences के लिए, that is true. Looking at the typical picture of Meenakshi has also joined. That is so nice. So given that, how do I close this? Are you seeing the box on top of my slides? No, no?
No, we can't. We can only see your slides.
Yeah, okay. So given the typical COVID curve in India, we have seen significant waves. The May 2021 was the deadliest, which took us to nearly 400,000 cases in a day. At that time, there was a lot of flack that India got for managing COVID badly. And it was probably a lack of preparedness. It was also a sense of complacency कि हमारे को तो कुछ नहीं होता, India की तो immunity बहुत high है, etc., etc. But it was a wake-up call for us. Ever since then, even though we have had pockets of overconfidence, but we have largely stayed vigilant. Omicron को कोई भी रोक नहीं सकता था. What we observed in January 2022 was something which nobody could have prevented. And that, in a way, worked well for India because it gave us immunity to emerging strains which were of the Omicron lineage. And we'll come to that in the course of this presentation. Now, if we put US and UK on top of that chart, we see that US has closely followed the same epidemic pandemic curve as India. Initial waves में जब हमारे 400,000 थे तब उनके 40,000 थे. जब जुलाई में, as we were emerging from that Delta wave, when they had 40,000, we had nearly 40,000. But today, after Omicron, US is still reeling under emerging variants, and India seems to be largely out of it. Our active cases are less than 5,000 as of date today. This is the peak of Omicron wave, where they had hit the double of what we hit. But well, हम लोग टेस्ट नहीं करते, हम लोग report नहीं करते, हम लोग we are. So India needs to be an honest case study as to what population dynamics do to a pandemic, and we need to give the credit where it is due also. जो डॉक्टर के हमारे को कहा करते थे ना, that treat early, don't let mild become moderate, don't let moderate become severe. That is the policy that India has followed throughout, and that is what has resulted in our better controls. If you look at this chart, US cumulative cases more than 100 million, India, well, nearly 45, UK nearly 25. Israel and China are low down. China seems to be on the upsurge. But up Israel ka dekho, Israel ki population is a sixth of India's population. Israel ki population is less than UP ki population. So given that, proportionately, Israel has had much more of a COVID than is acceptable. Now, the same 21st December 2022, as of just 4 days ago, our world in data is showing this map where if you see the yellow zone, that is less than 10 cases per million on a bi-weekly confirmation basis. This is the ivermectin belt. And less than 10 cases at a time when China seems to be getting out of their zero COVID state. Also to note, UK has stopped officially reporting COVID. Now, why have they started doing that? The emerging strains of COVID, as of UK's Zoe symptom tracker, cause mild fever, mild cough, cold, which becomes okay in 5, 7, 10 days. And the fever, the respiratory distress, the hypercoagulability, the hyperlipidemia, the lung failure, the liver failure are largely not seen. तो अगर हम इस पिक्चर को देखें तो it is the same picture that any other rhinovirus, coronavirus, human coronaviruses cause in humans. And जब हम कहते हैं कि we are not tracking, so we don't track rhinovirus infections, for instance. We there was a meme which said, Omicron is very dangerous. You have to be very careful. Symptoms: no fever, no headache, no body ache, no loss of appetite. In fact, China is reporting an increase in appetite. So, what are we trying to track? But if you look at Australia, again, late uptake of vaccines, Pfizer vaccine, then Australia seems to be in that dark blue zone or the less than that zone, with just about crossing 8,000 infections a day. India we are still in that yellow or light green zone, and we have to be watchful as of now. If you look at the Johns Hopkins tracker, emerging dots all over India, Europe in a surge, US in a surge, South America in sort of coastal surge, but Africa very sparse. ऑस्ट्रेलिया में जो पॉपुलेशन सेंटर्स हैं उनमें थोड़ा आपको दिख रहा है, but the continental interiors of Australia are also largely clear. These are the places where vaccine uptake has been less than optimal. If we look at India, and I was happy to see the India tracker back. This is as of 25th December, 1 a.m. That means kal raat, aaj subah 1 baje. This is 54 cases in the last 24 hours. Cumulative, if you notice, is 4 million. But look at the curve. The curve is on a downtrend. Active cases are not exponentially rising. The total confirmed and the recovered are sort of following the same pattern. And the deceased have flattened out, and there are no new deaths reported in India. 0 new deaths. Recovered 183 out of this 2,500. And total cases active 200. Look at the vaccination share in the world. The vaccination share, nearly 92% of Chinese population has received their vaccine, Sinovac. The problem being nearly 90% of that has only completed the initial protocol, which is 2 doses. But studies from Israel and Qatar are saying that for that vaccine, 3 doses or 2 doses plus natural infection would complete the protocol. If we look at Tanzania, less than 50% of the population. And if you look at absolute numbers, India and China, more than 1 billion people vaccinated. US, nearly 250 million vaccinated. Russia, despite the war, is not showing an upsurge. Germany, Israel, Tanzania. अब आप अगर इजराइल और टंजानिया को कंपेयर करो तो टंजानिया में ज्यादा वैक्सीनेशन है than Israel. And what really is that emergency use authorization now? So emergency use authorization would be when you can authorize a treatment or an intervention for a disease for which the threat of disease far outweighs the threat of using an untested treatment protocol. In the last 2 years, 3 years, we have come to understand this disease a little better. Every 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, it throws up a curveball. We begin responding to that curveball by putting science and logic in place. But that emergency use clause now should not hold. Now we should have enough human data, and we should have science and logic leading the way. So if you were to look at where we think science has been ruling, COVID in the US, जहां पर अभी भी upsurge note हो रहा है, BA5 comprises nearly 75% of worldwide infections, and BA5 is the dominant strain in US. If you see that US is contributing to about 5% of BF7. We'll come to that in a bit. ये वाला chart अगर आप देखोगे तो age group wise है. This is the cumulative total numbers. The BF7, which is emerging in China, peaked around mid-November in the US and has been steadily decreasing over the last month or so. So the BF7 has already gone through US and has been outcompeted by other emerging variants. If you look here, then ye BF7, this is the light blue thing, which is BF7. This is their CDC's nowcast, which tracks the relative variant density. So the BF7 as of 24th December is even less than 5%, 4.9%. The BF7 is 3.9%. This one. Over there, XBB is increasing. They called this the nightmare variant. And the BN1 is slightly showing up. But BF7 has already gone through US. They seem to be largely having BQ 1.1 and BQ1. What do these nomenclatures really mean? So this is a paper from China, and it has discussed the emerging. It has discussed the emerging. Could you all please mute?
I think Dr. Pava and Dr. Mehta have been unmuted by mistake. If you could just mute them, or if you can give me the co-host. Yeah.
I'll just. Okay.
Dr. Dhar. If you can give me the co-host, if you have that option, then I can do that while you present, because it's difficult to do both.
Okay. Yeah. I'll tell Dr. Dhawan to do that for you. Just.
Yeah, sure.
So this paper is taking the data from those representative countries. So they have taken India and Singapore as representation of Asia, UK and France for Europe, and US for North America. If you look at the global chart, this dark blue indigo thing, this is BF7. Just about, little emergence in India, just about little emergence in Singapore. And in India, as I told you, we saw the first few cases starting June, July, and we have, as of now, seen only 4 cases of BF7. Meenakshi, you've been given the co-host. So globally, it has been around since September. But it has been on a relative stable or downtrend mode everywhere in the world. It has been outcompeted everywhere by other variants, notably BQ1 and BQ1.1, and in some places the XBB. If you notice here, the dark red is BQ1.1, the light red is BQ1, and XBB strains are the light green and the dark green ones.
Your slides are no longer sharing, so if you're...
Oh, is that? Now?
Yeah.
All right. So as I was saying that if you see these dark indigo boxes, these are the BF7. And in global picture, you see that BF7 has largely either stayed stable or shown a decrease over the last 3 months. And it has been outcompeted by BQ1. BQ1 is the light red and BQ1.1, which is the dark red. So if you see France and UK, which kind of represent Europe, the BQ1.1, the dark red, is the dominant strain as of December. If you see US, again, BQ1.1 and BQ1 are taking over US. But in India, BQ1 and BQ1.1 are less in number. We have had the XBB and the XBB1 over here, the green light and the dark green boxes. Singapore, similar picture in Singapore, but in India, the dominant strain has been BA2.75. In Singapore, the dominant strain has been BA5. Why this becomes important is because we are neighboring countries to China. It is an airborne virus. We do need to be mindful of what has gone through our population and what we need to do for the emerging strains. So India and Singapore have not seen too much of BF7, and we might see a surge. But the global trends dictate that we should be cautious, not fearful. Europe, in fact, has stopped tracking BF7 altogether. You will see that in the Europe charts, the European CDC, you will see that BF7 falls into the gray zone where no data is available, where others are seen. So a little more detailed view of Europe. If you see the BA5, the light blue, has been decreasing from July onwards, and BQ1 and BQ1.1 have been increasing. The green one, XBB, is just emerging, but BF7 has largely stayed stable in both countries, in France as well as in UK. BQ1.1 and BQ1 are more common in Europe. This is closely following the European trend, the global trend. Now, if you look at India, in India, the orange one, BA2.75, there are a lot of numbers here, and you just have to be mindful that India has not seen the same variants emerge as has happened in Europe. The variants in India have provided a good seroprevalence in India. There is greater immune escape in the emerging variants. However, the emerging variants, the BF7 in China, are far outcompeted by other variants which India has begun to see already. Now, BF7 is a sublineage of BF5. whereas India has been seeing more the sublineages of BA2. BA4 and 5 are more fusogenic. As I was talking at the beginning of the Zoom meeting, before we went live, BA4 and 5 are more fusogenic, and hence they are more pathogenic. BA4 and 5 will cause some degree of chest and lung symptoms, and hence our original caveat, don't let mild become moderate, don't let moderate become severe, still holds. If we look at this paper, this is September 13th, 2022. What we know of emerging Omicron variants, including BA4 and BA5. If you look at this, this is the evolution chart. Omicron has shown some distinct branching arms. The BA2 arm has shown emergence of further sublineages, but the main mutation that we need to be mindful of is the L452 mutation. Now, the L452 mutation in BA 2.9.1 is L452M. That in BA 2.11 is L452R, and that in BA 2.12.1 is L452Q. In the BA4 and 5, L452 still exists. This is the one that seems to offer the immune escape in this variant. And these mutations are making them have a higher R0, having a higher resistance to induced immunity, and also in fusogenicity, hence pathogenicity. The earlier variants are finished and gone. In Singapore, if we look at the Asian experience, we are looking at what Pfizer has done. In Singapore, the dominant variant has been BA5, some presence of BA 2.7, emerging and then waning off XBB.1, and emerging and replacement by XBB plain. BQ 1.1 and BQ1, what is now taking over US, UK, and France, is beginning to emerge in Singapore. What we also need to be mindful of is that though the illness is not severe, it is consistent with the Omicron clinical profile. Omicron is still COVID. It still has the spike, and the spike alone is sufficient to produce all the effects of this virus. The SARS-CoV-2 as a virus is evolving and continuing to do so. The more it spreads and multiplies, the more it mutates. There is going to come a point where the virus says, I've done enough and I'm stable. The human beings offer a stable host, and just like either a more pathogenic influenza virus where we see periodic epidemics, we will have to be careful, or like existing rhinoviruses, we will run through a cold and say we are done with it in 3, 4, 5 days. The XBB emergence does appear to correlate with decreasing admissions both to hospitals and to ICUs, and the Singapore data is very clear on that. These are Singapore hospital admissions. If you see, when the earlier variants were there, the admissions were still there, though very few in number. You are seeing less than 200 admissions, but now if you see, there are less than 40, 50 admissions a day. So the the thing to note is that emerging variants do have an immune advantage. Specifically, the XBB variants have alarming antibody evasion properties. And as I was saying, the L452, which is present in this purple zone, the receptor binding domain in the RBD, is what gives it the immune evasion properties. It gives it the fusogenic properties, and it also allows the virus to become somewhat more pathogenic. If you look at the tree here, the Omicron first resulted in BA1, BA1.1, BA3, BA2 has the arm which went into becoming XBB and XBB1. BA5 is the one which resulted in BQ1, BQ1.1, and BA4 and 5 are the ones which have resulted in the BF7, which is coming in China. The BQ1 specific alterations have been again in the receptor binding domain. These are coded in red. The BA5 specific are coded in blue. And if you see this chart here, the BA2 series has these colored dots. If you see, darker the color, more the numbers. In the BA4-5 series, the dots are much lighter. Despite immune evasion, the disease is much milder. If you see the BA2 series, the XBB, XBB1, BA2.75, these are the much darker dots. So the mutation to be most worried about in emerging sublineage BF7, which is actually BA5.2.17. Now you see BA5 is the one which results in milder disease. This is the one which is emerging in China. The keynote mutation here is R346T. But this is not a unique mutation. This mutation is found in all the emerging variants. It is found in BA4.6, it is found in BQ1.1, in BA2.75. It is found in all the emerging Omicron variants. It does have resistance to neutralization by neutralization antibodies generated by a vaccine or by a previous infection. However, this is far less so than the emerging sublineages of BA2 branch of Omicron. And if you note, India has been through this branch of Omicron. So as the BF7 shares this arm, and as this one shows more resistance, this has a survival advantage. The BA2 arm has a survival advantage and outcompetes the BA4 and 5 arm. We have more prevalence of this arm in India. Not something to be overconfident about, not something to be complacent about, but we seem to have an immune advantage at the moment. This is again a very detailed chart of what it means to be on the BA2 arm or of being on the BA4-5 arm. Just look at the density and the saturation of the dots. If you are darker, you have more resistance and more severe disease. If you have lighter dots, you have less resistance. You do have resistance on both the arms, but you have less immune escape and less severe disease on the BA4-5 arm. Looking at that in a little bit greater detail, this is in the cell host and microbe, and this is as of 22nd November 2022. If you look at the BA4-5-6 arm, it has a 1.2 times resistance to pre-existing neutralization antibodies. The BF7, which is emerging in China now, has about 1.3. So BF4, 5, 6, and 7 are sharing their resistance potential, their evasion potential. But look at BA4, 5 or BA2, the ones which have been in India. This is 10 times, 11 times more resistant to pre-existing neutralizing antibodies. And if you see R346T, 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 R346T shared, but as the immune escape is increasing, it is the N460K, N460K which has come up. And there is this new emerging thing, F486S, only in the BA 2.75. So in India, we have had majorly BA 2.75. Again, re-emphasizing the BA2 arm has greater immune evasion potential, more survival advantage, more severe disease. The assumption at the moment is that the emerging BF7, which is on this side of the arm, the BA4-5 side of the evolution chart, in China has an R0 of about 16, 18, or even 20, which means that the entire Chinese population expects to be infected within the coming month or two. With the Chinese New Year coming, that seems like not a very far-fetched possibility. It is important also to note that yesterday, and we don't know whether that is true or not, yesterday, China saw 30 million infections in one day. So it's whether people are lining up for hospital admissions or not, whether people are lining up for tests or not, whether there are so many deaths or not, is all a feature of the population dynamics, which has till now not been exposed to COVID as flagrantly as populations all over the globe have been. If we look at India, one case of BF7 was found in July, 2 in September, and 1 in November. Traditionally, Indian lineages, BA2, have had more immune escape than the BA4-5 variants. BA2 lineages have globally, historically outcompeted BA4-5 lineages, and India has already seen emergence of BA2 lineages. If you look at this chart, higher the circles, less is the neutralization. So the ones which are emerging in Europe, UK, and in fact, globally, the XBB varieties have the least neutralization. The ones which have emerged earlier, and we are looking at smaller numbers now. We are looking at 5 times, 7 times. If you look at this, from 5 times more resistant, this is 100 times more resistance to neutralization. And you look at these circles, these are 3 shots of the Wuhan strain. These are 4 shots of the Wuhan strain. The green dots are 3 shots of the Wuhan strain plus the bivalent vaccine. This is infection with BA2, with or without vaccine. And this is infection with BA4-5, with or without vaccine. So if you look at 3 shots of Wuhan with emerging XBB, you have practically zero neutralization, 100 times more resistance and immune escape. If you see what India has seen, we have had the good fortune of having some neutralization capability to the vaccine or natural immunity. Now, the thought that was going through my head, and what I think makes a little bit immune sense, and I think Meenakshi will be able to add to that. When we talk of a natural infection, we are talking about the whole virion particle. We are talking about a lot of immunogenic sites. We are talking about a lot of antigens that can result in antibodies, whether they are neutralizing or not. When we talk about spike, we are talking about only a single point immunogenicity. Spike is the one which is evolving. So giving whole virus vaccines should have an immune advantage over giving spike-based vaccines. Also, because it's a respiratory virus, the most interesting, most encouraging, and the most happening thing which has happened in India is the introduction of the nasal vaccine, which will provide, from Bharat Biotech, which will provide mucosal immunity. So I think that should be an encouraging development for India. And we should see what is happening in the coming 2 weeks to recommend whether or not everybody should get nasally boosted. I feel like, we just need to be cautious and we need to follow the standard protocols. We don't need to be fearful. We don't need to push panic buttons. And we need to watch the curve. We need to watch the symptoms. Symptoms that Chinese have been seeing are fever, cough, sore throat, runny nose, fatigue, and body pain, headache, which is like any other flu illness. The high-risk groups that they have been observing are the elderly, metabolic disease, and pregnant women. They have been very categorical that pregnant women are at high risk. Treatment protocols and guidelines, I would say follow the signs, follow the signs. If there is fever, mefenamic acid is to be preferred. If there is cough, and it is dry, irritating cough, use cough suppressants. When you see that there is beginning of formation of phlegm, because BF7 is fusogenic, then add mucolytics, bronchodilators, and mucoregulators. So N-acetylcysteine would have a role in this. Start earlier rather than later, because N-acetylcysteine otherwise also supports the respiratory epithelium. In fact, N-acetylcysteine in small doses. The clinical N-acetylcysteine comes in several brands as a 600 mg tablet, and those supplements come as a 100 mg tablet. So if you can start N-acetylcysteine as a 100 mg tablet twice a day, you are fairly looked after in the emerging days. Runny nose, use antihistamines. I would go in the order of loratadine, cyproheptadine, cetirizine, but the choice is yours. You can go the other way around also. If there is body pain, supplement with vitamins B, C, D, add quercetin, coenzyme Q10, resveratrol, etc. Those are all supporting the liver and the immunity. For general health, be mindful of your movement, keep moving. If you have a sitting job, take 2 minutes every hour to get up from your chair and move around. You could do 10 squats or 10 wall push-ups every hour. Health and fitness, the more you promote a baseline fitness, better your insulin sensitivity, more is your resistance to emerging strains. Melatonin, natural or supplemented, is of great use for its antioxidant properties, for its antiviral properties, for its immune enhancing properties, and for promoting sleep and anxiety alleviation. Metabolic disease, sleep well, let parasympathetic system rest and recover, take over. Be mindful of what you put in your body. You can't not have junk ever, but sometimes let it be. Most of the times, enjoy mindful eating. Movement, I think movement and sleep are by far the most important interventions in the coming days. So is there something that XBB and BQ 1.1 dictate over and above the variants that we have seen? Since there is immune evasion and immune escape, high-risk populations might benefit from antiviral agents if you see the disease is moving from mild to moderate or moderate to severe. This paper is as of 7th December 2022. It examines all the antibody cocktails and against the emerging variants with remdesivir, molnupiravir, with Paxlovid also. I think there will be a chart for Paxlovid also. So as immune evasion increases with emerging variants in some high-risk groups, it might be sensible to be mindful of antivirals. Paxlovid is being recommended for rather earlier than later, even amid conflicting reports of presence or absence of rebound phenomena. So people, as we have seen earlier, Biden went through a rebound, Anthony Fauci went through a rebound. These people were put on Paxlovid and they had rebound illness. But even so, Paxlovid is being recommended in high-risk elderly population. But in India, we have 12 vaccines as of December 2nd, 2022, approved for use in India. This COVID-19 vaccine tracker is a very encouraging page. I encourage all of you to go and have a look at this one. Every vaccine, they have written how many countries it is approved in, how many countries it went through trials in, and what is the vaccine itself. It's a DNA vaccine, protein subunit vaccine, whole virus vaccine. It is giving details of all 12 vaccines which are currently being used in India. Also, the Incovac or the Insovac or whatever you call it, the Bharat Biotech vaccine, which is for nasal application, completely atraumatic, highly encouraging. It has been released and approved day before yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. The government of India site continues to track daily new cases, daily new tests, active cases, discharged, total vaccinations. This tracker is showing that the government is still doing its job on the background. The guidelines have been updated as of 22nd December for international arrivals. But we are being mindful and not pushing panic buttons. So let us continue to follow the science, let logic and sense prevail. And I think we don't need to be very worried about what is happening. We just need to be mindful and keep doing what we were doing. I don't see any questions. Are you seeing any more, Meenakshi?
I'm definitely seeing more panic as compared to maybe like a few months ago. And like, even when people are, getting the flu symptoms, they think it's COVID now again. I mean, of course, it's always somehow, we're not live anywhere, right?
We can stop the live.
No, I mean, if it's just recording, it's fine. I mean, as long as you're not live. I somehow feel all these the rise in cases is always sort of aligned with a new vaccine that comes up. But then, yes, of course, we, China being a neighboring country, we are expecting some cases to rise. The one thing that I wanted to sort of bring up here, it's been a while, so I think, it's not been discussed. The incidence of lifestyle diseases like diabetes and hypertension, all these things. I don't know if there's been a study or if anyone's read anything about how that has been increasing post-COVID. because COVID, if we just consider it as a stressor, and then this is what I have been observing, that a lot of the patients who've had COVID, with their baseline CRP just being on the increasing trend, and then they develop diabetes, they develop hypertension. Maybe it was sort of an underlying disease, and it just COVID sort of exposed them. This is something that I wanted to discuss. If anyone's seen that kind of people who were not even maybe obese, but just like a little increased CRP, 3, 4, 5, and then that they develop diabetes soon after, maybe within
Leave
6
life.
months of having COVID.
Mhm.
This is
So what I have been observing is that, and that's how I explain it to the patients also, that if you have to see that you are in the firing line, if you have had COVID, even if you don't know, what COVID has done is exposing our chinks in the armor. If you had a crack earlier, that crack is opening wider. So people who were pre-thyroid are getting thyroid disease. People who were pre-diabetic are getting diabetes. People who were pre-hypertensive are getting hypertension. And I think it's a great wake-up call for everybody to look at very basic health protocols. Good morning, Dr. Arora. आपको बहुत याद करती हूँ मैं. Whenever I see a hemogram, I remember you.
I have an observation here. I have somehow seen an increase in the number of cataracts happening after COVID, more so in younger people, and developing very, very fast. So there could be some underlying metabolic effect which leads to this, but I can't explain what it is now. And not necessarily correlate to having had COVID or having taken the steroids.
So a lot of people do not even get to know that they have had COVID. And they will say कि हाँ वो जब हुआ था तब हमारे को शायद कुछ थोड़ा बहुत खांसी जुकाम हुआ था. We did not test, but it became okay. And I've heard this from a lot of people about the Delta wave. I've heard about the Omicron wave. But what, as Dr. Meenakshi also pointed out, what has happened is that the CRP is staying consistently high. The inflammation is higher. And the oxidative stress is higher. Sleep cycles have been disturbed. The recovery is delayed. So ongoing inflammation could be a reason why, cataracts are also happening.
So that's what I mean, all of these lifestyle diseases, or, the aging processes, they are sort of coming in earlier, and, it's basically exposing all those hidden cases, is what I feel. Right. And as to the increase in the incidence of COVID, of course, I mean, testing is really not there yet, where, we were in, if you see, we're not really in the middle of a wave. So the testing is not there. So I wouldn't say that, the cases are rising or anything as far as the OPD scenario is concerned. But yes, people are more sensitized because of the media and everything. So they are reporting, and they do come and ask, do we need to get tested? So as of now, we are not, as a doctor, I'm not pressing the panic button either. And that's what we are advising the patient.
So I would tend to agree with you.
Dr. Nidhi,
Yeah. Hanji. Yeah, Dr. Manisha.
Without panic, what's wrong in advising RT-PCR or antigen?
No, nothing wrong.
My cases of fever and cold cough. So that is a protocol we must try and push through. But as far as compliance is concerned, I see it zero. Even if whole offices have undergone cold cough, mild fever or something, still the testing is also almost zero.
So,
that's
so I would
limitation.
say, as I said in that slide, that follow the science and follow the signs. Matlab, symbols as well as science. Because if we don't track rhinoviruses, we don't track common cold, we don't track a lot of viruses which cause transient illnesses. There is absolutely no harm if you want to advise the test and people get tested. We will only generate more data. But if a disease is resulting in transient flu symptoms, getting over, and not resulting in any long-term effects, then it's okay. Whether you choose to label it as COVID or not, it will work for the time being. If we come to a wave, then insisting on the test becomes a duty as a medical professional. The other thing that I want to point out here is that there are some studies which have come from Japan, from Israel, and from UK, which say that fermented foods help. So fermented foods have an enzyme called nattokinase, and nattokinase actually neutralizes the spike. So the only problem with nattokinase is that it is also a very potent anticoagulant. So if a patient is already on anticoagulant therapy, I don't know whether I can ask them to take nattokinase alongside. But हमारे यहाँ पर तो भटूरे भी fermented food से बनते हैं. So even your unhealthy foods have a lot of fermented food. So, very simple dietary interventions can actually help. Khamira atta to is a very big thing in Punjabi families. So maybe Dr. Arora, you have something to say for that?
No, nothing. But see, I just wanted to ask you: have you seen any case recently? Because I have not seen even a
No,
single
sir.
case.
No, sir.
Not,
No.
not at all.
And I prefer to see the CBC before I order a COVID test.
Yes, yes. Even some have got tested this COVID, but they were negative.
They're negative. They're negative.
Yes.
Absolutely. Dr. Sanjeev is asking if there is a possibility of 2 or more infections to stay together. I've heard of tridemic. So they were calling it the tripledemic. They were saying that the flu, influenza, COVID, and the respiratory syncytial virus, RSV, were occurring together, but this was not, they were occurring together in the same patient. There is a Switzerland-based healthcare foundation called Vihon Healthcare, which promotes natural, scientific, logical solutions to emerging diseases. And their studies reveal that any virus, when it infects, causes the cascade of interferons. These interferons would be protective, and hence, if you have a single viral infection, it kind of is protective for other viral infections, which might be what is working for Africa, because in Africa, the underlying viral epidemics are rampant, including HIV, which is otherwise an immune suppressive virus, but the interferon load in the body is higher. So we don't know what is working for Africa, whether it is ivermectin or it is pre-existing viral infections, but interferons might have something to do with it. So tripledemic is existence of RSV, influenza, and COVID in community, not in the same patient.
Yes. One thing I have noticed recently, last 2-3 weeks, there is a lot of cases with cough, with you can say sputum and crepitations regularly, and that's a long standing. It's not just usually it is 4 or 5 days or so. It is happening for 3 weeks or so. Have you seen such cases?
Sir, in this weather, I generally see patients who have what I call allergic bronchitis for the sake of being politically correct. Because अगर आप patient को कहते हो कि आपको asthma हो रहा है तो वो डर जाते हैं तो आप उसको allergic bronchitis बोल के treat करते हो. But I traditionally in this weather, in November, December, January in Delhi, I see persisting cough with phlegm and disturbed sleep at night because it's more at night. Nocturnal cough, I see more at this time. And because the throat is clear, they come to me thinking it is a throat issue. The throat is clear, so I put them on bronchodilators and I tell them to see a physician. But I traditionally see more at this time.
Yeah, but this year it's, I think, maybe more. I have seen.
Probably, sir, because you see more of cough anyways. So you
Yes,
may be
yes.
able to make a better judgment of it. But what I see, I'm seeing similar picture. I'm not seeing anything outlandishly higher this year.
Okay.
और मुझे लगता है कि शायद थोड़ा सा इस बार बारिश नहीं होने के कारण, when the cold is dry rather than damp, these coughs will be more. The cold is dry this year and it is more drying. And in fact, sir, we had done one session on neuropathic cough syndrome, if you remember.
Yes, yes.
So when the patients don't respond to bronchodilators, antacids, and anti-allergics, it is time to try gabapen and gabapen NT. And they respond within 3 days. It does two things. One is that it improves the quality of sleep because it's given at night. And two, it does allow the nerves to recover a little bit. The gabapen allows the nerve recovery to happen a little faster so that the irritation and scratchiness is less. And whether you want to give plain gabapen or you want to give gabapen NT depends on how anxious the patient is with the cough.
No, but if it is with phlegm, I think it will won't be as a suppressant.
ब्रोंकोडाइलेटर तो देना ही है, बट ब्रोंकोडाइलेटर के साथ भी ना सर कॉफ कभी जैसे आप कह रहे हो ना कि परसिस्ट कर रही है, तो इफ इट इज परसिस्टिंग एंड द नर्व्स आर इरिटेटेड, try adding gabapen or gabapen NT depending on whether the patient is anxious or not. It might work better.
Yes, I'll try.
Because that's what I'm doing and I see them having very good response. And it would be good to see whether others get similar response, because for me, it becomes my anecdotal practice experience. It doesn't become something I've reported. It doesn't become something. It would be good to see if this group can, see this response.
I'll give you feedback. Yes, Sandeep.
Nidhi, hello.
हाँ
Nidhi,
जी,
we
ma'am.
heard like this strain is causing false negative आ रहे हैं, सीधा lungs में infection हो रहा है.
मैम हो सकता है तभी मैं ये कह रही हूँ कि what I feel is that we irrespective of COVID test, seeing the CBC first and the CRP would contribute more to our management of disease than a COVID test. So it is possible. It is very possible.
Yeah.
CRP तो regular high आ रहा है. CRP तो I have seen most. Yes, it is high.
Yeah, CRP is high. Like.
But ma'am, serial CRP. So is the CRP baseline high or is the CRP rising in the infection? So do 2 serial CRPs and see whether you need to intervene on CRP. A baseline high CRP in any case is kind of the norm in our population, which is why the CRP less than 1 campaign was a very powerful campaign.
अभी क्या guidelines है CRP को down करने के लिए? Drugs like.
Meenakshi, you want to take that? I follow the same.
So there are no guidelines. Guidelines तो मतलब government या फिर कोई some authority would give you.
नहीं, हमारी guidelines.
So what
तो
sir
वही कर रही हूँ.
used to so sir Kalmik देते थे twice a day to begin with, and that's what he used to give, and he used to also give colchicine for people who had CRP above 5. So I am not being very liberal with colchicine anymore.
Agreed.
And but Calmeg is something that if the CRP is high, I do ask the patients to try. So that's one thing. And the thing is that we need to find the underlying cause. Why is the CRP high? So, there are a lot of things which you see Sir's videos. There's one video in which he talks about finding out the CRP, the cause of the high CRP. So it could be any inflammation. If it is arthritis, treat the arthritis. Try to, find out all the other causes that could be. So there was one patient who had a chronically high CRP, and then it turned out to be a dental reason why the CRP used to be high. So then, treat the cause if you can find the cause. But agar obesity cause hai, to usko treat karo. So that's one thing, and treat the cause, and then Calmeg actually does work. And then all those other surge or inflammatory, fight the inflammation करके sir की भी एक video है. And there were so many other things. What Dr. Nidhi has also been talking about: sleep, exercise, causing, the weight loss. जो भी Dr. Nidhi ने भी हमें बताए हुए हैं बहुत बार. Those things also do help. So वजन कम करने से definitely we've seen. In fact, if Dr. Nidhi remembers, we had done. So Dr. KK had done this sort of experiment where he in Navratra he was monitoring the CRP, and वो सात्विक food खाने से ही 1 or 2 points का CRP it had come down, which I think is quite significant. I wish we could have published that data. It was quite interesting.
You can still publish it.
Yeah, I know, but I don't have access to all the data. Let me see. Let me look into it. That was quite, it's something that's been on my mind for a while.
That is one. The other thing that I feel we need to also look at is how so even sleep itself. If we look at one thing that sleep can do, that is it brings down the oxidative stress in the body. And the reason why it does that is with natural endogenous melatonin. Now, if the natural endogenous melatonin is less, then supplementing it with even up to 10 mg at night is not outlandish. And also, how to improve your natural melatonin surge is, it doesn't happen during the night. It really, the first stimulus for natural endogenous melatonin at night is how quickly you see sunlight in the day. So within waking up, if within the first 90 minutes, within the first hour and a half, you step out of the house and spend 20 minutes in natural light, even if it is not a sunny day, then your natural melatonin surge will happen around 12 hours from that AM. So if you have done it at 8 AM, your natural melatonin surge will happen at 8 PM. The second thing that will happen is that if after 8 PM, you're staying off artificial screens and artificial lights, then you're keeping that melatonin surge going. 2 hours of exposure to screen time is canceling out one night's melatonin. So so I tell all my patients that if you want to sleep well, no TV, no screen, nothing after dinner, which is something even I can't follow very, very well. But after dinner, just relax with the family, do nothing else. So melatonin is very important. Ji, sir.
You said you will try to sleep early by 10 o'clock.
Sir, I'm sleeping early, I'm sleeping early, but zero screen time nahi hota. Zero screen time nahi hota.
Zero screen time 2 hours before bedtime also works.
Yes.
If you just get out, the screen time or any blue light, any screen that emits blue light, अगर वो आप 2 घंटे पहले भी अगर आप छोड़ दो, so that also works.
That also works.
Committing to a dedicated bedtime routine also works. Going to bed at the same time every day also works. And also, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I had read something about yellow lights only before, just warm yellow lights before. If you want any lights to be on, it should be only warm yellow before your bedtime. So that also sort of helps.
And interestingly, Apple seems to have gotten it right, because after a certain time, your screen automatically shifts into the night mode.
Yeah, there is a night mode which makes it yellow. The light, yes.
It
yes.
automatically makes it yellow. You don't have to enable it. So if
this blue light and warm light is the overhyped thing, and
Is it?
one should not depend too much on that. No,
No, one
Right.
should not depend too
Generally-
much on it.
yeah, generally cutting down the screen time is what is required, and sleeping on time is needed.
Okay.
Yes, but if the choice is between looking at a screen which is slightly warm colored or cold colored, warm is
Right.
better.
Okay.
Better compared to cold, they're cold. But
Right.
again, warm itself is bad. No? So that's
Right.
the thing. Yeah.
Okay. No, I was not talking about the
I-
screen being yellow. I was just talking about the room lights, the interior lights.
No, I got that.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Both
Yeah.
both ways. No. So ideally, light should be off. When you sleep. But if the choice is when one has to have a light on, and the choice is between a cold light and a warm light,
Right.
warm is better.
Right.
I have a suggestion for two of you, Meenakshi and Nidhi, that I think what you should do is that while this scare is still on, hold these sessions every Sunday. When the scare goes away or flares up, then you can decide on the frequency later on. And thereafter, maybe if when the scare goes away, then make this maybe once in a month session, and which can be more other topics can be included in the round, so not just COVID. No.
That's a
Suggestion
big
taken.
commitment, and Dr. Nidhi would have to, because she works very hard on the presentations, and her sleep schedule also gets disrupted because of these sessions. So
Mine also
No.
gets affected because the light is on till she goes out to sleep. No.
right.
No, see, this one I wanted to do because there was a sudden panic.
Yeah.
And if the panic persists, we'll update on the WhatsApp group whether we're doing next Sunday or not. If it's a felt need, definitely we'll do it. But if it is kind of petering off, then we'll update on a last Sunday kind of thing once a month, which summarizes the whole thing, and we'll gradually pick up a schedule of doing things which promote health rather than fight disease.
Right.
Yeah, it need not be COVID also, but carry
Yeah,
on
that's
at
what I'm
least
saying,
once
promote
in
health.
yeah.
Promote health.
Yes, because you guys have formed a good academic group, I think it should continue.
If you plan regularly, even once a month, I can pitch in for some topic or so.
Yes, sir. I want to have your thalassemia thing again, because I've seen a kid and I don't know whether I'm making the right choice or not. So
See, I like to inform this group that we're having our 10th National Thalassemia Conference on 4th and 5th February. It's in Lady Harding Medical College.
okay,
So I'll
sir.
put my brochure in the group. Anybody who wants to attend can register and participate.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. So I think we are largely
Fine.
done. I think there are no questions. So Dr. Sanjeev, I hope I've answered your triple demic question also satisfactorily.
Yeah.
I think we'll update on the group. Hopefully we don't have to do every week. Hopefully we can do with a once a month thing. But Meenakshi and I will get together and see what we can do. Thank you so much. I'm very
Thank
encouraged by
you.
20 people. I was expecting only 5.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Poonam. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Dr.
Bye.
Nidhi.
Bye. Bye, Meenakshi.